You're also big on inflammation, and I wanna ask you: do you see a lot of people today with just inflammation in their bodies based on their biofeedback of skin and hair? And what can we do to reduce inflammation? I mean, of course, there are anti-inflammatory foods. We should exercise, not overtrain. But how do you help your patients with understanding inflammation and its role in skin and hair health?
Yeah, I think it's what you said, especially with skin. Almost every skin disease has an inflammatory mediator, which is being leaked into the skin. Whether you talk about psoriasis, you talk about atopic dermatitis, acne, hair loss, they all have an inflammatory component. And what I've grown to realize is that environmental factors, including stress, becomes a very important issue. Now, when you talk about stress, it's not necessarily the physical stress, right? There's a certain amount of emotional stress you're exposing your body to, and there's a certain amount of stress which is coming through because of your environment. That could be your lifestyle choices as well. So at any given point, I believe in today's world, we're all suffering from some amount of inflammation, which is where your dietary support and your supplements become very important. And I always tell my patients that, even like an itch scratch cycle which develops later into a rash or an eczema could be that early marker showing you that your body needs support. So consuming antioxidants cyclically, I don't say that have them regularly.
Correct.
Consuming omega-3, I think is very important. And, changing oils in which you cook. A lot of seed oils are pro-inflammation. So shifting, like making that basic shift to cooking in nut oils. A lot of people just say, canola oil is healthy. Right? Canola is GMO. This is what I'm saying. You need to be aware of what you're consuming and putting into your body. Everyone says, oh, doctor, I eat so healthy. And when you ask them, what are you eating? I'm eating zucchini. Even zucchini can be GMO. You know what I'm saying? So you need to have that awareness, because for inflammation, you consciously, I think you have three pillars. You have your diet, you have your mind, and you have your body. So you need to exercise, you need to do mind calming activities, and you need to eat healthy.
Yes. And sleep, which you had spoken about earlier.
Sleep for me is
the top,
something,
right?
It goes without saying.
Me too.
Because I think just for functionality, forget the growth hormone, forget everything else, all the benefit it comes with, that's the only time you give your body and your cells to regenerate.
Absolutely.
So,
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, doctor, what are some of your favorite supplements that you would use in a world like today? Like, I'm not going to shy away. There are good supplements, there are bad supplements. There are synthetic, there are better made, wrong fillers, right fillers and stuff like that. So, what are some of the supplements you see that the population needs today to support environmental breakdowns, pollution, food chain issues? What would you use basically?
Luke, it's very interesting because I'm a big supplemental supporter, but at the same time, I always tell my patients that be aware of what you're putting in,
Absolutely,
right? So I usually, if you have to talk in the broader sense, when I look at someone who's in the second decade of life, right, typically 20s to 30s, you see a lot of cases coming to you with a lot of insulin resistance. That's a very peak time I'm saying it. So I do choose a lot of inositol in up to 900, milligram dosages, and the right combination. It should be the perfect blend of myo and inositol, right? Like that 40:1 ratio to give you. Berberine is something that has worked very well. It's a root extract, but works very well for insulin resistance. And in younger generations, because of so many diets, I prefer to see their levels where they sit at with even vitamin D and B12. And we've seen increasing amounts of people coming in with these deficiencies. But one thing which I want to highlight is a lot of the young kids come with high prolactin. And that's because of the poor lifestyle choices, right?
Stress,
they're sleeping late.
Even stress.
Even just the sleep, because prolactin is specifically released an hour after waking up when sunlight hits your eye, right? And it's a very essential hormone for female health and for your skin. So these young girls come in with all blocked pores and they've done all the tests and they say, doc, I don't have PCOD, I don't have PCOS, why is my skin? And you test that one thing and prolactin is high. And I'm not saying corrected medication, but even vitamin B6 supplementation has shown amazing roles to bring down prolactin level. So that's what I like to look at in the second decade. Of course, there are variations. Some people might need this kind of support even later in life. In the third decade, I feel like your aging starts showing up. Resveratrol, omega-3, zinc. I feel these three supplements become very essential in my list. And now curcumin, because 30s to 40s is when you're typically going through that stress of household, your career, and there's a lot more stress activators in your body. So I feel as antioxidants, curcumin works brilliantly. And in your later age, I would say for longevity in that sense of your organs and to be disease free, NAD works very well.
Yeah.
It's a really good supplement to look at, and quercetin.
And I think most individuals after the age of 35 will start to naturally deplete NAD.
True.
So, I mean, if you
It's
can put
exactly.
the precursors in, fantastic. Otherwise,
which is why I said age-wise. See, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, just because you're 20 and you feel you're aging,
Yeah.
you can't start taking NAD.
True. Yeah.
This is the whole point of understanding what your body needs it and when it needs it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, now with social media, oh, this is the new thing with anti-aging. Let's start drinking red wine. Because resveratrol is found in red wine.
You can get in other sources
yes,
too.
you can get it in other sources. Grapes, peanuts. It's what we were discussing earlier, right? But I think that awareness is important. You need to know what your body needs and at what is the right age to consume it.
Correct. No, that's fantastic. I love that you speak about supplements that way, because there's always the pros, cons and everything, but it's the right way you take it and the right quantity as well. So doctor, I want to go back to how beautifully you explained the skin microbiome. And if I had to ask you, what should we all do to, what are some of the changes we can do to look after or let this microbiome flourish?
Yeah.
Because everyone knows now, I mean, not everyone knows, but we keep talking about the gut microbiome. Do this, do that, keep gaps between your meals, prebiotic, probiotic. Give us some routines and tips for our skin microbiome.
I think, the skin microbiome is a topic for like one whole session in itself, because it's so massive to discuss. But just to give you the gist of it, I think, the gut-brain skin axis, it's all becoming very popular.
Yeah.
You're hearing people talk about it. There's a lot of information coming out. The basis of that gut-brain skin axis is the microbiome. So microbiota is the live bacteria which lives on your skin or in your gut. And it's actually forming, like literally responsible for 2 to 3 kgs of your body weight. That's how many organisms you have living on your body at any given time. And the genetic makeup of these microbes is what your microbiome stands for, right? What is very, very interesting is that when you are in your gestational period, right, like as a fetus growing, you start developing your microbiome. But your first exposure is what starts that climatization, which is why a lot of people believe that vaginal birth was better for the child's skin over a C-section. But now research has shown that in the vaginal birth, there might be certain bacteria which colonize the skin. And in the C-section, you might have more colonies of the mother's microbiome, right? And when we look at the gut microbiome, that's responsible in the similar manner for 70% of your immunity. So it's actually the first place where your food is getting primed, right? And when we talk about gut, I think a lot of people think we're talking about the stomach. But what we're actually looking at is your entire digestive tract.
Correct.
So the microbiome starts right from the mouth, going up all the way to the lining. So everything you eat is affecting your microbiome, which is where the probiotic and the prebiotic comes into the role. And I think orally we can do it. With skin, it gets tricky because, you can't really have an assurity that you're putting a live bacteria on your skin.
Unless you're playing with soil.
Yes.
You're doing your gardening, you're in the mud.
That gets you to that point.
That.
That's why spending time in nature meant so much. And maybe that's why we saw lesser occurrences of skin disease in the kids earlier, because they just had so much time in the open. That's one. Second was community living. So they had a lot of person-to-person contact, which also builds your microbiome. You would allow your neighbors to pick up your child. You'd allow them to hug them. Now we don't. Our kids are wrapped up in swaddles from the day they are born, right?
True.
And we're scared. Of course, we've lived through a pandemic, rightly so. But that has all affected our microbiome over time. And it's been gradual, but that's what we have done. And that's why, Luke, you'll be shocked. I think I must be seeing, in my practice, if I see 10 children in a day, there must be 4 who come with atopic dermatitis.
Wow.
And the sad thing is people like to believe that that's something they'll have to live with, which is where it gets difficult to explain to them how the role of environment and diet can play a role. Because telling a mother with a child of atopic dermatitis that make your kid go off gluten or make your kid go off dairy can be very challenging.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant point. I like that you bring the holistic angle into everything that you do.